Hello, this video is a quick overview of the reading section of the AQA English Language Paper 1. This is simply a quick summary and outline of the paper to aid with your last minute revision. Now, as you know, Paper 1, clue is in the name. Paper 1 is the language paper with only one text. The one text is a piece of literary fiction for you to analyse. In this video, I'm going to quickly remind you of the format of the 4 questions in the reading section of this paper. Then I'm going to run through my suggested timings for those questions, and then I'm going to finish with a quick example paper for you to work on if you need to. The first thing you're going to do is obviously open your exam paper and want to spend some time reading the text, trying to get a conceptual overview of it, and then reading the questions to try and work out what you should be looking for when you come to answer those questions. The first question is the 4-mark question, the very simple question where you simply take a chunk of the text and you're asked to list some information that you can find in that chunk of the text. Where students often lose very simple marks is not reading the question properly and then finding information from outside of the lines that they've been asked to look at, or finding information that's irrelevant. The key with this one is simply to read the question. This question is designed to warm your brain up to the exam and to calm you down and to reassure you that you do understand the text. Question 2 is the first of the 8-mark questions. And the key here is working out what the writer is trying to do and what language they are using to do that. So the first thing you need to do in the exam is to try and work out what is going on in the text, but also what tone is the writer trying to create. Is there a melancholy tone, a sinister, a frightening, a foreboding tone, a happy tone, a tone of describing beauty, whatever. This question is asking you to pick out language features that the writer has chosen in order to convey that tone. The format that you should be aiming for in this question is whatever your teacher has told you, but it will be something like a petal or a pearl paragraph where you make a point, you use a quotation or evidence, you use the language terminology to describe the evidence. That might be metaphor, simile, noun phrase. If you can't think of the terminology, you might use something a bit more general like lexical choice or word choice. And next is the important bit, the ARL or the AL, analysing and linking to the reader and the reader's response and linking back to your question. It's really important that you've read the question and that every paragraph links back to that question. The question will specifically ask you how the writer is conveying their sense of anger or fear or whatever, and you have to make sure that every paragraph links to that. Question 3 is the other 8-mark question. So again, you're aiming to write 3 analytical paragraphs. You're analysing what the writer was trying to do to the reader and how they succeeded in doing that. This time you're focusing on structure, and your teacher will have taught you a number of pieces of terminology that you can use to analyse structure. However, on a basic level, analysing structure is about talking about what is happening at the beginning, in the middle and at the end of the extract, and why the writer chose to organise their narrative or description in that way. So on a very simple level, the kind of terminology you want to be using here is in the beginning, in the middle and at the end. Of course, you want to use some more sophisticated pieces of terminology like foreshadowing if you can find it. The higher level students here, if you're aiming for 5 or more out of 8, you need to find the pivotal moment. The exam board are going to pick a text that has a pivotal moment and they're going to look for you to find that. Again, just like the language question, the students that get the very top marks in this question are the ones that have an overview, a conceptual overview of the whole text. What is the writer trying to do across the whole text? If you're not sure about that and you can't do that in the exam, then do just move through the text methodically from the beginning to the end, down through the 4 or 5 paragraphs that the extract will have, and move through the text chronologically and explain what you think the writer was doing at the beginning, in the middle and at the end, and why they chose to order their narrative like that. It might be because they were trying to reveal something about a character. It might be that they're trying to build a sense of suspense. It might be that they're trying to take the reader on a journey. Of course, the obvious reason that they do it is to engage the reader and make the reader want to move on. But do try to avoid using those words because it reminds everybody of a primary school child. So use words instead like character development, building a sense of suspense, or taking the reader on a journey. Question 4 on this paper is the most challenging but the most interesting, and with the greatest room for you to give your opinion on the text. The exam will give you a quotation from a student who has read this text, and the quotation will be the student's opinion. It will be something like, having read this extract, one student said, "There is a clear sense that the narrator feels afraid in this extract," or "The writer has created a real sense of beauty and awe in this extract," or that there is a sense of excitement or something. And the exam will ask you to what extent you agree. The exam board here are looking for you to mostly agree with this quotation. They're going to give you an opinion that you're supposed to agree with. Yes, you can disagree to a certain extent, and the cleverer students will be able to disagree to a certain extent, but do not disagree wholeheartedly. That's not what the exam board are looking for you to do. In this question, you're looking to write 4 lovely analytical paragraphs. There are no particular outlines on what you're supposed to write about. It can be language or structure or both, but they are looking for you to be analytical in general. So obviously that's going to require you to use the traditional point, quotation, analysis structure that you're used to. It just gives you freedom to go in the direction that your opinion takes you. Whatever you find the most interesting in the text, you can dip into. If it's quite language heavy, that's fine. If it's quite structure heavy, that's also fine. But they are looking for you to use lots of evidence from the text and to analyse the effect on the reader. In this question, of course, the reader is supposed to be you, so please do feel free to use the word I think, I get the impression, I found it interesting when. Just to sum up then with a final few words of advice, and particularly an emphasis on the timings. In this exam, you're going to want to keep your eye on the clock because timings are very important. Because you'll need some reading time before you're able to answer any of the questions, you want to aim to have your reading done and to have been able to answer question 1 after 10 minutes. Then that leaves you 10 minutes each for each of the 8-mark questions. In 10 minutes, hopefully you're able to write 3 paragraphs for each of the 8-mark questions, question 2 and 3. And the important thing is that you're very strict with yourself and leave yourself 30 minutes, plenty of time to answer question 4. With question 4, it's a good idea to make a plan, to make sure that your annotations make sense before you start writing. As I said, the students who give a coherent, conceptual response are the students that hit the highest marks, and it is worth, with question 4, just taking a few moments to ensure that your answer is coherent and conceptual. Just to finish off this video then, I'm going to leave you with an example extract and some questions. If you feel at this point in your revision that doing a quick exam practice would be useful for you, then please do that and email the answers or your thoughts on the responses to your teachers, and they'll be happy to give you some feedback, I'm sure. I've taken this extract from the novel Chocolat by Joanne Harris. This extract is from the opening of the novel. The narrator and her daughter have just arrived in a new town in France where they are intending to live. So feel free at this point to use the pause button on the video to look at the questions which are here and to go back and look at the extract as and when you need.